Egypt Air Flight 990. The accident involving Egypt Air Flight 990 might have been an unfortunate example of Jesus take the wheel when someone put more trust in God instead of his piloting skills. Flight 990 took off from New York on October 31st, 1999, heading for Cairo. About an hour into the flight, things took a dramatic turn. The plane suddenly entered a steep dive and crashed into the Atlantic Ocean, killing all 217 people on board. Now, this is where things get intriguing, because what caused the crash is still debated, and the two major explanations tell very different stories, like a choose-your-own-adventure book, with each story leading to different answers. The NTSB found that while the captain had left the cockpit for a break, the co-pilot, Gamil al-Batouti, was at the controls. Just before the dive, al-Batouti reportedly said, "Tokad Allah Allah," which means "I rely on God," multiple times. It's like he was playing the ultimate game of trust fall with God, not realizing gravity had taken control of the plane. This could mean two things. First, he metaphorically gave the controls to God and turned the autopilot off, relying on religious guidance instead of skills. Second, he might have deliberately crashed the plane, wanting to see God as soon as possible. The NTSB leaned toward this being a case of a suicide-homicide situation. However, the Egyptian Civil Aviation Authority had a completely different take. They didn't believe al-Batouti would have done such a thing. Instead, they suggested that the crash resulted from a mechanical failure, particularly an issue with the elevator panels, which control the plane's pitch. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. It's March 8, 2014, and you're part of 239 passengers and crew from Malaysia are on the way to Beijing on Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 in what was supposed to be a holiday trip. But instead of seeing the Great Wall, you became a part of a great sky mystery. Less than an hour after taking off, air control traffic lost contact with the plane. No distress signal, no sign of trouble, just gone. Imagine you're tracking a plane on a map, and suddenly the dot on the radar disappears, as if the pilot hit airplane mode on the airplane itself. The weird part was that MH370 was seemingly on a strange journey because it completely deviated from the usual route, as if the air version of Waze told it to detour to avoid the sky traffic. Instead of heading to Beijing, the plane turned west and south into the Indian Ocean. Malaysia and different authorities spent $44 million to cover the entire Indian Ocean, searching for the plane. Some debris was found washed up on Reunion Island, confirming that MH370 had indeed crashed into the ocean. But like the last piece of a jigsaw puzzle that just won't turn up, the main wreckage and the answers we all want are still missing. Various theories popped up over time. You'd first think, surely the plane was hijacked by terrorists. But then there's the theory about a technical failure caused by a combination of communication problems and loss of control, leading to a crash that's not unlike you suddenly losing an online game when the Wi-Fi malfunctions. Despite all the theories, no one could come up with a concrete answer, turning the disappearance of MH370 into the Bigfoot of airplane accidents. Amelia Earhart's disappearance. Amelia Earhart's spirit of girl power was strong. In 1937, she made a bold claim that women could fly an airplane, a time when most women were passenger princesses in cars and airplanes alike. Earhart wanted to be the first woman to travel the globe, a feat only done by men. Her goal was ambitious, but she was just 7,000 miles away from achieving it. However, during one leg of the trip over the Pacific Ocean, she and her navigator, Fred Noonan, simply vanished, never to be seen again. Their target was Howland Island, a speck in the middle of the ocean where they were supposed to refuel. But navigating in the 1930s wasn't exactly a piece of cake, because they didn't have Google Maps telling them where to go. As they neared the island, Earhart sent radio messages saying they were running low on fuel and couldn't find the island. It was like trying to find a needle in a haystack, except the needle was a tropical paradise. Soon after, communication stopped altogether. Some radio operators reported hearing signals from her, suggesting she might have landed on a remote island. Unfortunately, none of these signals led to her rescue, and neither Earhart nor the plane was ever found. Conspiracy theories came flying out of nowhere, but the most widely accepted idea is that Earhart's plane ran out of fuel and she and Noonan ditched it into the ocean, probably wishing they could hitch a ride on a whale. But despite extensive search efforts, no wreckage has ever been found. Then there's the theory that they crash-landed on a remote island, possibly Gardner Island, where they may have survived for a while as castaways in what was a real-life version of Survivor. In 1940, bones were found on the island, and some believe they could belong to Earhart, though this has never been proven. In the end, the disappearance of Amelia Earhart remains a mystery that's up in the air, almost 100 years later. Flying Tiger Line Flight 739. It's March 16, 1962, and you're a soldier stationed in Guam and on a mission to Vietnam to fight for American freedom together with 93 other soldiers. But instead of reaching Vietnam to stick democracy up the butts of the Viet Cong, your plane disappears while it was on its way to refuel in the Philippines. The weird part about this disappearance is that there was no distress call, radar blip, or SOS. The entire trip was just radio silence, making the air traffic controller think it was smooth cruising. Everyone on board got erased from existence, as if they entered a portal into another dimension. When news broke out, the government quickly went on a search mission covering 200,000 square miles of ocean. Not a single trace of wreckage was found, leading to theories. It could have been a mechanical failure, but since no wreckage was found, other theories like sabotage or a secret Vietnamese spy mission became more possible. You'd probably even believe that aliens came and gave the passengers a first-class plane ticket to their home planet. Even to this day, Flight 739 remains a mystery. The US government never acknowledged it as a crash, just a missing aircraft. If Flight 739 were a movie, it would leave you with a cliffhanger, but it's more likely that it played an aerial game of hide-and-seek, ultimately deciding it never wanted to be found. TWA Flight 800. The case of TWA Flight 800 is one of those aviation mysteries that makes you think, wait, are we really sure that's what happened? Imagine yourself flying on TWA Flight 800 from JFK Airport in New York on July 17, 1996, as you're excited to see the Eiffel Tower in the most romantic city in the world. But 12 minutes after taking off, you're still looking at the perfect in-flight movie before the plane explodes mid-air over the Atlantic Ocean. You and 229 people on board are instantly killed. This tragic event unfolded in the 90s, a time when tensions between the US and the Middle East were high. So given the timing and the dramatic explosion, many people immediately suspected foul play, like a missile strike or a bomb. Or maybe someone forgot it wasn't the 4th of July and sent hundreds of fireworks into the sky. But the fact that witnesses claimed they saw a streak of light moving toward the plane just before it exploded only added to the suspicions. It seemed almost too explosive to be a simple accident. However, after a 4-year investigation, the National Transportation Safety Board determined that the cause of the explosion wasn't a terrorist attack or a missile. Instead, they pointed to a malfunction in the plane's center fuel tank. Apparently, flammable vapors built up inside the tank, and a short circuit caused those vapors to ignite, creating what was essentially a fireworks show in the middle of the sky, which isn't the kind of in-flight entertainment anyone signed up for. Despite the NTSB's findings, some people remain unconvinced. The popular belief is that it was a cover-up. After all, if you were the government, you wouldn't want to tell people that terrorists or an enemy missile found its way to American shores. That would be the worst way to tell people you were wasting their tax money. Stardust. It's August 2nd, 1947, and you're an air traffic controller, thinking that it will be a normal day at your job of keeping the skies decongested. Just another day of telling pilots you're cleared for takeoff, and praying they remember to put on their seatbelts. But then, out of nowhere, you receive a Morse code message from a plane called Stardust, flying through the Andes and on its way to Chile. The message says STENDEC, a term that you've never heard of before. You probably think you just suck at Morse code, but the plane vanishes and is never heard from again. Search teams turned every stone in the mountains, only to find no trace of the lost plane. It was as if the Andes had swallowed it whole, possibly in an effort to keep their secrets to themselves. The mystery eventually became one of aviation's greatest unsolved puzzles for decades, leading people to devise conspiracy theories revolving around the only clue, that mysterious word. Some say it's an alien greeting, while others think it's just an inside joke between pilots. No one knows what STENDEC is, because it wasn't a known distress signal, so you'd probably think it was a Morse code typo, or probably an alien trying to communicate. Eventually, in 1998, some climbers saw the wreckage of Stardust buried in a glacier in the Andes. It turned out the plane had crashed into the mountain, and over the years, the glacier had given it a one-way ticket to an icy burial. The crew had a visibility issue, so they basically went from flying high to now we're really low, all without realizing they had crashed into a mountain. The mystery of what happened had a logical answer, but as for STENDEC, there's still no clear answer to what that word is. Maybe the pilot was trying to play Scrabble before plunging into an icy death. B-47 Stratojet. The U.S. flexed its aerial muscle during the 1950s with the B-47 Stratojet, the American Eagle of aviation warfare. It had cutting-edge technology designed to scare the Soviets during the Cold War, and the U.S. trusted no other plane to carry a few of its nuclear weapons. In March 1956, a B-47 Stratojet called Ink Spot 59 carried nuclear weapons and made a trip from Florida to Morocco. Basically, the crew was carrying a literal hot potato they needed to be careful with because it could blow up with a simple mistake. However, the plane disappeared 90 miles southwest of Oran, just as it was about to descend for refueling. The initial news was that the plane had exploded somewhere near French Morocco. However, after an exhaustive search, no debris was found. The exact location of the disappearance was never established. That's when things became fishy, because a jet carrying nuclear materials just wouldn't disappear into thin air. They ruled out the explosion angle because of the absence of debris, and because it had been established that the nuclear materials it was carrying couldn't detonate. So if you put two and two together to piece a puzzle, you'd probably think that someone captured the plane. After all, it carried nuclear weapons, the most important commodity during the era. It could have been a serious case of a rival country seizing those nuclear weapons, hoping to use them against the Americans. But there was no clear evidence that the nukes got stolen or were detonated. Essentially, the trail was as cold as the Cold War itself. The disappearance of Frederick Valentine. The disappearance of Frederick Valentine is one of those mysteries that would make you think that we may not be alone in this universe after all, especially when aliens could be randomly snatching people from the sky out of nowhere. It's October 21st, 1978, and 20-year-old Valentine, a relatively inexperienced Australian pilot, is flying his small plane over Bass Strait, a stretch of water between mainland Australia and Tasmania. Everything seemed fine for the first part of the trip, like a first date that starts with a nice dinner. But like most failed relationships, Valentine noticed a big red flag about 45 minutes in. He radioed Melbourne's air traffic control to report something strange. He said a large aircraft was above him, but nothing appeared on the radar. Valentine, who at this point must have been questioning both his flight plan and his life choices, described the object as having 4 bright lights, and as it moved closer, he reported that it was not an aircraft and was moving at high speeds. Then things got even weirder. Valentine mentioned that the object seemed to be toying with him, zooming around his plane, before finally vanishing, as if tricking him into playing a game of aerial tag. His last transmission was particularly eerie. He cryptically mentioned his engine was rough idling. Then there was a metallic scraping noise, and silence. Valentine and his plane disappeared. Search parties went out looking for Valentine, but neither he nor his aircraft were ever found. That's when people started thinking about aliens possibly taking him to their mothership to give him a tour of the galaxy, or it could have been a secret project the government was trying to cover up. The only theory that probably made sense was that he got disoriented and crashed into the sea. Whatever the case, you could say that Valentine got an out-of-this-world experience. Flight 19. You're one of 5 U.S. Navy TBM Avenger bomber pilots, known as Flight 19 under Lieutenant Charles Taylor's leadership. On December 5, 1945, you left Florida to go on a routine mission, to complete a triangular navigation route before returning to base. This sounds simple enough for a seasoned pilot, but instead of a straightforward flight, you find yourself on an unintended tour of the Bermuda Triangle, where even a GPS needs a GPS. Things took a bizarre turn when Taylor radioed in about an hour and a half into the flight, saying something unsettling. He was lost. His compass wasn't working, and the landmarks he should have recognized weren't matching up. The other pilots in the formation reported similar confusion. To add to the weirdness, despite years of experience, Taylor's sense of direction seemed totally off, as if he couldn't tell left from right or up from down. The guys back at the base tried to guide him back, but the weather got worse, scrambling the communication lines. Flight 19's last words were, "We're not sure where we are. Everything looks strange." To make matters even spookier, a search plane sent out to find Flight 19 also vanished without a trace, as if it decided to join in on the spooky fun. Over 300 planes and ships scoured the ocean, but no wreckage or bodies were ever recovered. It was like these aircraft simply vanished into thin air. This is where the Bermuda Triangle theories come in, making people believe that Flight 19 got sucked into an interdimensional vortex, or got got abducted by aliens, but others argue the plane simply ran out of fuel and crashed into the sea, never to be found. Our channel may not be the internet's Bermuda Triangle, but we know you like getting lost in our videos, so please support us by subscribing to our channel and joining our Discord. Transworld Airlines Flight 3. Imagine yourself as a famous actress, Carole Lombard, flying first class on the TWA Flight 3, which took off from Los Angeles and is on its way to New York. Life seems glamorous for you as you sip on champagne while the other passengers are cramped in economy class. But the thing is that a plane crash doesn't discriminate between first class and economy passengers. The plane disappeared over the Nevada desert on what was supposed to be a routine cross-country trip, but it never made it to its destination. The last communication from the plane was a routine position report until it was never called back. With an actress involved in the incident, the search for the missing aircraft was extensive, as if Hollywood had hired the entire cast of a blockbuster to find it, but no immediate trace was found. Eventually, wreckage was discovered in the rugged terrain of the Nevada mountains. There were no survivors, but the cause of the crash remained a mystery. The official investigation couldn't pinpoint a specific reason for the crash, leading to various theories, ranging from engine failure to pilot error. Adding a twist to the tale, some suggest that the aircraft saw a surprise it did not see coming when it got shot down by Nazi agents, especially because it crashed in the middle of World War II. Ultimately, the true cause of TWA Flight 3's crash remains one of aviation's unsolved puzzles. So from making Hollywood movies, Carole Lombard eventually became the topic of air crash mystery documentaries. Another theory is that there might have been a problem with the aircraft itself, perhaps something that went wrong with the instruments or the autopilot. It's like trying to drive a car with a wonky GPS and broken speedometer because you won't get a smooth ride. In the end, the clues found in the wreckage were like puzzle pieces that didn't fit the puzzle because they didn't help at all. It's like this aviation accident refused to be solved, even with modern technology involved.